Hello, it's January 25th. It's SIG Node CI group. Welcome, everybody. Let's get started. So I wanted to start with a small triage. I put all the issues that related to our group in this triage section from these queries. So let's just quickly go through them. I'm not sure what this fix is about. So there is a PR with proposing some registry change. Does anybody have a context?
Oh, that's a do not merge PR. I am guessing they never want that merge, so it doesn't need review. It looks like it's just for testing.
Yeah, it's work in progress, but this affects. I think this affects how some of our test runs.
Yeah,
especially here.
Basically, if you want to if you're an org member and you want to test something in CI, you can just open a do not merge PR, even if you don't actually want it merged. I've done this a couple of times. I don't think we need to review this.
Okay. Integration test for disabled ephemeral containers. Yeah, I guess it's important. It does what happens when ephemeral containers are disabled. I think it will be less important once we GA the feature. But for now, I think we can review it at least. So I'll move it to definitely not working on the small monitor. Okay. Update post container, post image. I don't think it's related to us at all, so I'll archive it. Use recently promoted images. I think it's related to this one, like that's what we looked before. So it's about image promotion, but I'm not sure what the context it is. If anybody knows the context, please speak up.
The pause images one are a little bit related to SIG Node because they are they're basically to do some Windows enablement, so which is Node related.
Do you think we need to test like help review the promotion to 341?
I think that there are some Node reviewers, or sorry, Node approvers that are required because there's so many changes, but I don't know how much.
Okay, I will fish it out.
I can always manually pull that one into the other board too.
Yeah, I just don't want to pollute this board because this is for CI group.
It's not like a CI really. Well, it's kind of CI related because we're changing all of the pause images in CI. That's why it's labeled testing.
Okay, makes sense. You need to test for C advisory Linux. Yeah, I think it's clearly our group. We need to review it. This is also our group. This is on one of the some tests were failing, and there is a fix by enabling alpha APIs. Enabling alpha APIs fixes the test, so this is needed. Okay. And this one, I'm not sure. So not coupled orphan test. This is probably important. I mean, it's clearly related to our group. Deflaking orphans. So I think it's important. I just put it in the review required column. I mean, do you want to say something about this PR?
Yeah, I have a topic on the agenda.
Okay. And I'm not sure about this one. Is it related to us? Explicitly disable entry plugin DC. I don't think it's related to our group at all. but they changed one of our jobs by including this int3 plugin GC unregister flag. Do you want to keep it just to understand what they're doing? And CPU manager tests, I think it's new for us. Yeah.
Yeah, I opened two pull requests
Okay.
because we still have a lot of failures under the serial lane, and one of the reasons that it failed it because topology manager test failed in the middle and did not did not clear the state file. And now once the couplet restarted, and because the state CPU manager file present and his state is not the same as under the system, the kubelet failed to restart, and so all tests after it just failed on timeout and stuff like this.
Oh, I see. So one test kills all other tests. Should be marked as disruptive and run separately, or there is a fix for that?
It's a fix. It's because in Go Mega you have after each stuff that you can clean all the stuff after the test running. So also if something is falling in the middle of the test, after each will run anyway. So I just moved all the cleaning stuff under the after each, and it should solve the problem. Again, I ensure it will solve serial lane, like all serial lane problems, but at least let's start with it, yeah, because it's definitely a problem.
Perfect. And there is one more about delete state file to the after each.
Yeah, it's the
Is
one.
the same?
Yeah, and the second one is to fix the wrong assumptions under the CPU manager methods regarding the CPU topology, because it's have assumptions that if you that you have more than one CPUs on the machine, and it's not true for serial lane, because we run with the with a machine with a single CPU. So.
I see. So next, I wanted to just take a look at issues that we currently in progress and double check that we actually working on them. So, are you supposed to be working on that? No, is it unclear? No.
That's assigned to me. You just
Oh,
wait here. So the first two are somewhat related. I'm behind on life, so I'm behind on those. But basically, I merged a change that would have hopefully fixed the node conformance test, basically making them skipping the branch that was basically running the wrong set of tests. But now there's a different issue. So one of the other tags, which I don't fully understand in the proud test yet, I have to dig into it. Something is not right. It's not able to talk to the master cluster. So I'm just assuming that there's a tag that is doing something that was maybe intended for when we were running in Docker. And so there might be some mixed mode that is broke there. So I'm currently looking into that.
So this is not the current description, right? So this is already fixed, this part.
Yeah, so basically we made a change in attempt to fix that part, but then now something else isn't working, so.
Okay. Yeah, if you need some collaborators, comment on this issue and ask for help.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll try to make some progress on that.
Okay, next one. Yeah, I can't see the icon. Who is signed up for 3 Hui?
It's me. Yeah.
Oh, okay. How do you pronounce it?
It's yeah, it's something definitely that wrote by English letters, but it's Russian meaning, you know. it's some of my university accounts.
Okay, cool. Are you working on this?
Yeah, exactly. It's regarding the serial lane, and like I said before, currently the problem is the topology manager test, and that it doesn't clean the state file. So once it will be merged, I will continue with it because again, I am sure if it will solve all the problems under the serial line.
Okay. Alpha tab failure. I think this has a PR submitted for that, right?
This has a PR, yes.
Okay. So work on that, and orphans also PR for that. You working on this?
Yeah, it half the flicken. That is one I didn't discover.
Cool. So we work on all the issues that we currently have active. Aditya, I know you're working on issue. Like, should we just move your issue here? Establish plan, this one, right?
I'm working on that issue. You can move it in progress.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Anybody else wants to move the issue? Anybody looking for issue? We have a bunch of issues to do, like 13 of them. Okay, I guess it's fine. And yeah, now we have 16 PRs that are ready for review. Let's all take a look, and oh, this is already LGTM. I will move LGTMs here, but yeah, please take a look at these PRs. If you LGTM them by tomorrow, we can ask for approvals before the meeting. Typically, before SIG Node meeting, people are quite active approving things. Okay, let's go back to agenda, and Aditi, you up?
Yeah, so this agenda is related to the issue about establishing a test plan for containerd. So I've seen that on test grid, like half of the jobs are failing. And like we are testing them on the like older versions of containerd and older versions of Kubernetes. So if you check
Do you want
this
to share a
comment,
screen? I can make you presenter.
yeah, okay.
I made you a co-host.
Can you tell me how to share screen?
There is supposedly a red button underneath called share screen. If not, you can just tell me which document to open.
Yeah, okay, I'll just tell you better. It's not a document, it's a comment on the issue.
Okay, I'm resharing. So I guess this issue.
Yes, this issue
Okay.
and the comment below. I pasted the link also. Yeah.
Is font big enough for everybody? I can try to make it bigger.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, just go the above one also. Like it is this summary of the container jobs that we are running. Yeah. So basically, if you look at these jobs, like we are running on Kubernetes version 1.15, 1.16, and then directly on master. Similarly, containerd 1.2, 1.3, and now containerd 1.4 is released and 1.5 is in beta. So like we do not have any plan like for which KTS version, which containerd version we need to run, or like for which for which older versions we need to test the containerd jobs. So like whom who will tell me that like for what the versions, especially for the conformance and the Kubernetes E2E jobs that are important to us.
Do you know if you're running latest 1.2 or just some point in time 1.2?
Yeah, sorry.
For the version 1.2 of Containerd, are we running with latest released 1.2 or with some point in time?
Latest release is 1.4.
No, what I mean is minor version or like 1.3. Like either like.
So yeah, these are we are running in like this way, but they have minor versions as well, like 1.5.3 or something. Yeah.
My guess would be the branch, and that it's 1.2
Yeah.
whatever, not 1.2.0. That would be my intuition here.
Yeah, these are branches actually.
My guess is, I mean, given the versions here, it sounds like we probably set these up around the 1.17 dev cycle and just haven't bumped the versions since then.
Yeah. So I mean, do we need to upgrade the versions and like deprecate this one and remove this one and move ahead one version for Kubernetes and Containerd both, or?
I think we absolutely need to upgrade these. Otherwise, the tests are not actually testing what we care about.
I still have the question of, do we actually even own these jobs? I'm still confused by the sort of mishmash of, Containerd people and Kubernetes / SIG Node people who seem to sort of come and go to, create these jobs, and I'm not sure that we have any code that we sort of own that runs these jobs.
So I don't know if we quote unquote own them, but given that we're deprecating Docker shim, these are going to be our only conformance tests in nodes. So we probably at least have some vested interest in them testing the correct things. And interestingly, so we're running into some like race condition-y things. And Dim said, well, are they failing in the Containerd test? I'm like, I don't know. And if it turns out that the Containerd tests are just so old, they're not even testing where we would see the affected versions, and that's a problem. So
yeah, that was definitely an issue with the 1.2 tests. I know that, and I think
Morgan's question is almost. Do we need to test, like some tests are testing Containerd being like working fine with different versions of Kubernetes?
Yeah, so
it's something that Containerd people will assumedly own, and some tests own, like test master against different versions of Containerd, which is we need to own.
Yeah, that exactly what he said. So if we can figure out the ones that are master versus Containerd or X version versus Containerd, then that's, maybe we need to pull these out into our own specific test job and say, look, these are the test jobs that we own that are node and test this stuff, versus these are the jobs that Containerd happens to own and we ignore them for the most part and they just happen to show up. I mean, they should probably even have their own dashboard at that point.
There is a different dashboard that Containerd owns, I think, and they are, I mean, they have two jobs, one for building Containerd and one for running the Kubernetes E2E test. So this is, I think, this whole board we on, and yeah. So
do we know?
Especially the top three jobs like E2E, node conformance, and node features, like. And on that point, one thing as well, like if you go to Containerd repo or Kubernetes repo, I mean, there is no like matching version things, like on which versions of Kubernetes of which Containerd version supports, or like that, or how many old Containerd version current master supported. Like if you go to cryo repo, you will see a matching version list that between Kubernetes and cryo. So that is missing for Containerd.
Yeah, I think there is a policy on Containerd written somewhere. I don't remember what it is exactly, but I think it's two versions back from the date it was released or something like that. I don't remember exactly, but there is a policy.
Okay.
Maybe I can dig it up.
The Kubernetes policy?
No, Containerd policy. What
yeah,
Containerd supports. Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, the thing that I was trying to ask earlier, do we know who on the Containerd side is designated to like own these things? Can we reach out to them?
I think Derek is most active, but all of them, all maintainers.
Derek, as in Derek Carr?
No,
Derek McGowan.
Okay, different
Okay.
Derek. Great.
Yep.
I was gonna say other
Lots of
Derek.
Derek's.
Very busy.
Okay, one more issue on this. We are having a build, if you scroll down, we are having build container D jobs. Like that, they are just building container D. So we are building container D for 4 releases. So I mean, if building container D and testing it out, I don't think so. It is our job. So should we have them in our? I mean, here.
Yeah, this is that overlap that I'm talking about.
Yeah.
This
So
is
I
that.
think
Does Container D own these, or do we own these? Do we care, or do they care? I mean, they only take like 2 minutes every hour or something, so it's not like a huge burden. And I wrote that up
Yeah,
somewhere.
but they look our dashboard. They make our dashboard red sometimes, and it is red from a long time now.
Yeah, fair enough.
I think if you can keep all the tests that doesn't test master of Kubernetes, like I think our test needs to live in Kubernetes master, different tab, not in container D tab. And this way we can test that master works with all the runtimes that we support. So this will be our statement of support. And all the building of container D thingy will stay in container D and maybe even get them out of SIG Node completely.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I mean when I say new dashboard or separate dashboard is all somewhere else.
Yeah, I'm not sure how do you call
So since
SIG Node
agree to
thingy?
the point, since we are going to make container D default, there should not be a separate dashboard for SIG Node container D, only a container D dashboard that will be solely owned by container D team, and the job KTest team cares about will move under some SIG Node jobs.
So maybe even not under SIG Node, we'll have container D thingy if we don't have it yet. And then if you go to SIG Node, I think we need to be like at container D test either release blocking or like not critical at a minimum. Everything is failing now.
In a container D node conformance is failing, yeah.
And there are two container D IO and container D.
Yeah, so the container D IO is owned by container D. That I understand. Yeah.
Okay.
And these are pre-submit jobs that triggered.
So I think we need to start moving some of these tests into SIG Node critical once they pass in. And like ideally run all the master tests on container D and move them into critical.
And about the version policy, like should I file a separate issue for that?
We can discuss it in that issue. I mean, right now 1.2 is already out of support, even out of extended support. So we I think we can make a statement that Kubernetes master needs to support 2 versions back, or like all supported container D versions.
Okay.
Does anybody know official policy? Because I assume the policy is all supported versions of container D, but I may be wrong.
Okay, I will try to search if I get this in some document, and if not, then yeah, then I will convey you.
Do you want to summarize what we discussed in the issue, or like we can comment?
Yeah, I'll summarize the discussion. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm glad you step up and start working on that. It's very important. So I wanted to ask about this. This issue recently was revived. Jorge was asking, do we need a special account for people actually working on fixing flakes? And I wanted to check with everybody here, if you feel the need for those accounts, we can start like asking for them. If you don't, we just need to close this issue. So what's the status? Like, I mean, I'm lucky I work for Google, so I have some credits for GCP, so I can. I don't need special accounts, but I'm happy to hear more from you.
Like for community, it can be wonderful. Again, I'm by myself. I find the ways like in Reddit to to have some environments to test flaky tests. But if someone doesn't have such opportunity, such an option, it can be great to have some community accounts that can be used. Again, the question of how it will be like limited and who will control it.
Yeah, as someone who doesn't work at Google, it would be handy to have access for that sort of testing.
And can you give me some understanding, like how much do we need to like? Is it like from time to time you just want to grab accounts from a pool of accounts and run an end-to-end test, or you want to create it and troubleshoot? Like, what's a typical scenario when how much?
Probably the typical scenario is like you have flake test and you want to run it like locally, that you can access machines and you can access the cluster on runtime at runtime, to check what the real situation under the environment. And probably it should not take more than 1 day, you know, like least for 1 day or something like will work, I believe.
Okay. Yeah, I will comment on those issues then. That some people would appreciate it, and we will see how it can be set up. If it can be, I don't know.
Like additional issue, for example, that I had that sometimes when like your pull request will fail from some reason, like under the CI, and you don't have any idea why it happens. For example, I had some pull requests regarding the CPU manager, and it passed for me locally when I tested it under my environment, but it did not pass under the CI because it CI still is using Docker shim as a like runtime, and I used container D plus run C, you know, and so yeah, it's also an additional value for such environment. It can be very close to original CI environment.
Yeah, presumably this second one can be resolved with better logs. We already have quite a lot of them, but I understand. Okay. Do you want to go to next, Hamim?
I think he dropped. The message in the chat just says, you know,
Yeah, that's right.
please look at the PRs, or you know, do some investigation, and let's get the PRs deflaked.
Oh, I see those PRs that we discussed. Okay. You already gave us overview. Okay. So yeah, I think we need to look at all the 16 PRs that are currently active, and it will resolve. It may resolve quite a few issues that are currently in to-do list. So maybe next time we will have more issues in to-do and keep making everything greener.
I will like to offer commentary on this orphan's job in particular. Besides being an awful name, what we need to do with the tests in that particular group is move them to some other group, basically, because they're not supposed to be, you know, on the history of the test organization. Those are just basically miscellaneous tests that weren't put into a group. So whenever somebody adds a new test that doesn't fall into one of the other groups, that's where it falls. And, you know, we need to try to move them around. And I've moved a couple of them at times based on their, you know, non-flakiness, but it's difficult. So
Yeah, I cannot find it, but yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, there's probably an issue somewhere. It comes up a lot.
Okay. With that, we will start this test portion of our meeting, and Ilana wanted to suggest like triage all the issues for SIG Node. So if you
I guess we got
not
to figure out
interested,
kind of what we want to do with things. So maybe just for the group, how many people were on last week's full SIG Node meeting? Did people get to see us chatting about that topic there?
Me, yes. So
I was there.
Okay. It sounds like most people were there. I just don't want to like rehash everything if if people were there and they're like, well, you don't need to tell me all this again. So let's see. And I am now co-host, so I can share my screen. Cool. What I'm going to do is I'm going to share the board, and then I think what we should try to do is figure out sort of an ongoing strategy. So let me show you what I've got, and hopefully now you can see the board. So we have a bit of a like triage backlog in SIG Node, and it's like for various reasons, we have a lot of activity in the SIG. We're one of the largest SIGs, and we're a little bit backed up in terms of like PRs and issues. I think there are 500 outstanding issues, give or take, in KK with a SIG Node tag on them. There's like in the 150 range open PRs. So that's like a lot. And we've been making, I think, good headway in terms of trying to drive that log down. But we need to like actually have, I think, a process, and we don't want it just to be sort of like predicated on one person. And I think the board's actually been making like pretty good progress since I sort of put this together. So I'll just very quickly go over this again. I went over this in the regular SIG Node meeting, but I will go over this quickly here as well. I put together this triage board to help myself get sort of a lay of the land of all of the non-testing PRs in Node. So if I look at the sort of default query that I have to add cards to the board here, so we have this query, which is basically, it's open, it's a PR, it has the label SIG Node, but it doesn't have a testing label because those are going to the CI board. And so basically, like, a couple times a week or whatever, I will go through all of the new cards and put them on the board as needed. Sometimes I'll go and look at them if they're not actually a SIG Node thing, which I can talk about, and then I'll put them in the appropriate column. So this one, for example, is a work in progress. So I will throw that in waiting on author because it's definitely not ready for review. Somebody's still working on it. This one doesn't have any like labels that would stop us from reviewing it as far as I can tell right now. So I will like throw that into the needs reviewer column. Same with this one. This one's also a work in progress. So you can kind of see how this goes. And this is how I would typically go through this process. That one looks fine. And then this one keeps getting SIG Node stuck on it because it's a big update for dependencies. So I've just been ignoring that one because I keep taking the SIG Node label off of it and it keeps getting put back on.
So you can do what I do in test group. You can add it to the board and archive it right away.
Archive it.
Yep.
Sure, I'll do that. And like, I mean, there's been a bunch of discussion on this one that has been not particularly like, it doesn't need us. So I'll just archive that. Great. Okay, now it's gone forever. So, so this is kind of the state of the board. And so I have these columns set up. There's not really any rules. So I guess one of the outcomes from the meeting on Tuesday last week was, who's going to own this board? Like, can we write down everything that we need to get done? Like, can we write down guidelines for people to review so that we can make more headway? And it's not just like me doing all of this. Unfortunately, GitHub projects don't have a lot of automation available. And so like a lot of this kind of does have to be manual just because like it's not smart enough to be able to like put things in columns based on labels, which I'm a little bit surprised by, but that's kind of the state of things. So there's one column on here that's automated, which is the done column. And since we've started this, there are now 45 things in done, which is pretty exciting. And presumably, you know, like once a release is over, we can, you know, like archive this or like archive all of the things in that column. So we don't have like an infinite backlog of done things. But for now, this is kind of like everything that's done for 121. And there's some stuff that are closed, some stuff that are merged. So this one's all automated. Everything else, like adding cards to the board is manual, and like moving them between columns is manual. So basically anything in the needs approver column has an LGTM but doesn't have an approved. Everything in needs reviewer doesn't have any blocking labels on it. It's in theory ready for review. Waiting on author has some blocking labels like work in progress, or like it has a hold on it, or somebody gave feedback and said, please go fix this thing. And that's why it would be in this column. And the triage has like some stuff like, you know, does it have okay to test on it? Does it have a release note? Like we have to go and do a first pass on it before we can even kind of pull it into the board. One of the things I've been wondering is maybe should we start, SIG Node has traditionally not really used the like needs triage label on PRs. Should we start triage accepting things once we look at them and like use that to throw things into like, before we put anything in like needs reviewer and so on, like should we be applying that label? Like that's, I don't know, back of my mind question. There are many questions. So I guess that's kind of the intro, and I would welcome folks' feedback. So you've seen the board, like, do you have any questions? Do you have any opinions as to how it should work?
So there is no automation? Oh, go ahead.
No, I think somebody has automation on the thing, but I'm not sure what triage accepted means. I'm not super familiar with that.
Oh, so. Great. So let me jump into that. So triage accepted is a new label that was implemented project-wide, basically to allow SIGs to indicate like if they're like having gone through triage, they've accepted either this issue or PR. A lot of groups use it for issues, like, yes, this is a valid issue, and like somebody can now look at it. So, you know, don't waste your time looking at issues that haven't been triaged. Some SIGs use it for both PRs and issues. So for example, in SIG instrumentation, anytime we have like an incoming thing and it's fine, we will stick a needs tree, or we'll stick the triage accepted label on there to like indicate that we've looked at it and it's legit. A frustrating thing is when random people like apply the, you know, triage accepted label and they're not even a member of the SIG. So that kind of throws that off a little bit, because I think anybody can do it. But in general, like, you know, you can see we're not really using them here. All of these kind of have needs triage on them. A few of them have triage accepted. So.
Okay, yeah. I can see how that would be useful. I'm just, yeah.
Yeah, because it would be good to, like, you know, for example, like if at some point we could move to a point where I know that there are some additional tooling that we can run for automation on these project boards. And if we could, for example, manage this thing on a totally label-based basis, so we don't have to actually do any work moving these things around, that would be awesome. So that would be one way that we could indicate that it's ready for a reviewer.
Yep, got it.
Sergey, you had a question maybe?
No, I think more of a comment. I think sometimes what I'm struggling with is like I have a different approach for triaging PRs or like reviewing PRs. I sometimes go into like all the PRs and comment on some of them and CC me on some of them, and then I have a special filter in the inbox. So all the PRs that I ever commented on goes into special folder, and it's the only folder I look at. So I typically don't look at PRs I never explicitly opened myself or nobody mentioned me. So this definitely will help to feed my incoming stream. So I can go to the needs reviewer and just fish things from there, and it's only 27 of them. So
yeah, that's sort of what I've been doing as well. Because initially, you know, if you've got just a pile of like 150 PRs and you have limited reviewer time, you know, like how do I know which ones to look at? And since we've moved to this, I know Mrunal's given me the feedback that having the needs approver column is super helpful because he doesn't have to go and look at every single SIG node labeled PR or like do his own queries. You know, he can just like go through this column and kind of like mash approve. And, you know, for the things that are like, you can also filter on these boards. So for example, if you just want like, if you just want to look at like cleanup things, right? They tend to be a little bit easier to review than like a bug fix or something like that. And so that makes it relatively quick. So I'm like, oh, okay, there's like 9 things that probably don't need a lot of like mental energy to approve on here that we can just get out of the way. So the filtering capabilities of this board, I don't know if I went over this in the other meeting, but I find them super handy. So for example, if I'm like looking for low-hanging fruit in the needs reviewer column, I can put in like a size XS query and like, okay, these ones are all maybe pretty easy to review because they're all like very small changes. So the filtering capabilities are, I think, super great and make it easier to go through these sorts of things. And hopefully, like basically my only complaint with this thing is that I can't just say like, you know, needs reviewer must have these labels and like waiting on author must have these labels and GitHub will just move things for me. That is what I wish it would do, but it does not currently do.
So I guess, I mean, except doing what automation must do, like moving LGTM to needs approver, the only reason to have a meeting for triage is to actually look at issues that have a label needs triage and apply this triage label. Everything else, I think all the columns are quite explanatory and like somebody like automation supposedly needs to do that, but in the lack of automation, we need to like either have a rotation of people updating the board or like, I don't know how to approach it. Like,
yeah, I'm not sure.
Why do we need a meeting for that? Like,
a rotation, or if people can just kind of do it ad hoc, or like, I don't know if we even have a big enough pool of people to do a rotation. I'm totally fine with continuing to do it ad hoc. Like basically any time that I sit down to go and review things, I'll just go and make sure the board is relatively up to date. My biggest worry right now is for this waiting on author column, like sometimes, you know, things will get ready for review again, and it's not obvious that they have done that. Like one thing that's really nice is if somebody puts a changes requested type of review on a thing, then you can see the changes were requested, and until they dismiss that, or when they dismiss that, that in theory should go away.
but they kind of dismiss it. Like author kind of dismiss it.
But yeah, I mean, for the most part, a lot of these are just like, you know, there's changes that are needed and people don't have it. Like, I also wish, for example, we could sort these columns automatically by like last modified time on the PR, but like these are things that just GitHub can't do. I know, actually, I think Bob Killen was saying that GitHub has reached out to Kubernetes about like feature improvements, and like they are inspired, I think, by how as a project we manage some things on GitHub. So I can try to give Bob feedback as well. So maybe like we can get GitHub to do those things for us, because that would be nice.
Cool.
Okay, so it sounds like we are, I guess, we're relatively comfortable with this board. Do people feel relatively comfortable that like they could go and jump into this and they would know? Like, I think what I can do, because I know, Sergey, like you put some cards sort of at the top of the columns as sort of like a guide for what each column meant. And maybe what I can do is I can do that and then also like write some documentation in the community repo under SIG Node that's just basically like, documents, you know, here's our CI board, here's our SIG Node board. I can maybe put a stub so you can just, you can fill in the CI stuff later. You know, here's how to review things, and, you know, here's how the process works. I can send that to this group and people can get a chance to review and, you know, provide feedback, see if it makes sense. Lazy consensus, merge it maybe in a week or two.
You can do it in a SIG Node document, weekly meeting document.
Yeah, my only worry about that is that it might get swallowed if it's like either in a particular day or it will just be too long to put at the beginning of the doc. Like I can put it in there and then put a link. Also, I'm trying to set a good example for other SIGs who might not be looking at our meeting notes.
Yay, document somewhere. I agree with that.
I'm happy.
I mean, I'm happy.
Down, so.
I don't know where to write it down, but Yes,
Community
let's write it
group is
down
probably
and
the right spot because that's where the developer documentation is supposed to go.
okay. Let me know and I'll 100% review it. I'd
Okay.
love to. I agree that this looks like it's a useful thing, and sometimes I take a look at it, but I find it a bit overwhelming, and I have
Yeah,
plenty
it's
of
totally
GitHub
overwhelming.
filters for myself. So
I just
yeah.
try to like, do those like filters and like pick 1 or 2 PRs and kind of go through them. The typo fix ones are really easy to review. The not typo fix ones they take a lot more time. So I just kind of like allocate an hour and get through whatever I can get through. Cool. So I guess that's kind of all I had for that one. I can write something down in the meeting minutes that I am action to go do this and sort of formalize this more. And then I'm hoping that other people will have the docs and they'll feel comfortable sort of jumping into this board as well. I am like mentoring a group of people who want to become SIG Node reviewers right now. So like one of the things that I've been having them do is like just sort of have at this triage column because you don't need any like, particular knowledge of the code base in order to be able to move things out of here. It's just a matter of looking at the PR, seeing there's nothing too scary in the diff, like putting maybe needs okay to test, maybe evaluating priority, and then throwing, it sounds like we should also be throwing in the triage accepted on things. And then, yeah, that's good. But then, and that now, like, I can just kind of work through as well, if we're in agreement on that one, needs triage. We can just kind of go through all of these that have already been in the, like, needs approver, needs reviewer, and just triage accept them. Anything that has an LGTM on it surely should have triage accepted. Anything that needs reviewer, we might want to double check it, but are probably also fine.
Yeah, if you want to use this like second half of this meeting to go through new issues that needs triage, we can definitely do that.
Yeah, that would be great. I know, like, so one thing that I've sort of been brushing under the rug has been the like incoming issues. I'm just looking at PRs, and the reason is there are so many of them. And for the most part right now, I'm just trying to focus on like actual breaking issues, which I will then assign to myself so I can keep track of them. I would like to improve sort of the overall health of issues, but I don't want to be too ambitious because I don't have all the time in the world to work on this as much as I wish I did. So I'm thinking like maybe sort of later in the release cycle or going into the 122 release cycle, I can start to like kind of whack away at the issue backlog. One of the things I'm hoping to maybe do is run a bug squashing party. So that way we can just kind of get a big group of people who are all like taking a day or two to just like drive down the size of our bug backlog. And then that way, once we've kind of gotten through all of that and we've said, okay, these issues are legitimate, these ones we've closed, these ones are support requests, they don't go to us, and so on and so forth, then we might be able to add issues to this as well for the triage. So we can also look at the incoming issues, throw triage accepted on them, try to assign them to people. That's one thing that, so in SIG instrumentation, every time we triage accept something, we also put an assignee on it. I don't know if this group is ready for that yet, because we've got a big backlog of node reviewers, but I don't know that all of them are active. But maybe once we've been doing this and we've got kind of like a good active pool, we can start doing that. Like, oh, this looks like, something so-and-so would want to look at, and not just rely on the bot, because for the people who are not active, they might get a sign and they'll never look at it. So.
Yeah, in this case, we'll need to invite more people in the second half of the meeting.
Yeah, the one thing that I've heard from a number of people is this meeting time is really bad for them because it's a lot of people tend to have conflicting work meetings on Mondays. So I don't know if we should consider moving this meeting. Like I know Derek and Don both said they can't make this time, but we don't necessarily need them to come to this meeting. My concern is everybody else who's been like, no, Mondays are terrible. Please don't do it on Mondays.
Yeah, I sent Doodle before like when Victor was stepping out and I started having this meeting, I sent a Doodle, and I think that was the most accepted time, but we can redoodle it.
Yeah, do you want to send that, Sergey?
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay, great.
Okay, we are thinking about the same agenda.
Yeah, same agenda.
So we are not extending agenda to product bugs yet.
Nope.
Okay, I can send a doodle again.
Great. I don't have anything else.
Thank you. Thank you, Lana, for driving this. It's great. If no more agenda, let's wrap the meeting.
Any other business?
Thank you, folks. Have a good
Thank
day.
you. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.